The presidential election of 1828 was a watershed moment, not merely a change in administration, but a seismic shift in the very character of American politics. It was the first great victory for the newly formed Democratic Party. It was the beginning of Jacksonian democracy. At the heart of the 1828 election, there were two titans. John Quincy Adams, the standard-bearer of a distinguished New England family. He was intellectual and eloquent. And Andrew Jackson, a war hero, a frontiersman, a man of the people, whose very name evoked a spirit of untamed independence and democratic will. The two opponents had squared off 4 years earlier in the election of 1824. Adams won, but the election was decided not by popular vote, but by the House of Representatives. Jackson supporters believed that Adams and Henry Clay had conspired to deny Jackson his rightful place in the White House. A grassroots movement developed, propelled by the conviction that the common man had been disenfranchised. Jackson's allies built the Democratic Party around him. The victory at New Orleans had cemented his image as a national hero and a protector of the Republic. He spoke in plain language and was widely known as Old Hickory, tough and resistant. Jackson embodied a new democratic spirit. Adams, by contrast, remained true to his New England upbringing and his intellectual convictions. He advocated for a strong federal government, investing in infrastructure, promoting education, and fostering scientific advancement, a vision that he believed would uplift the entire nation. Yet, in the growing democratic fervor, he often came across as aloof, his more measured approach as indecisive. The charges of corruption in the 1824 election, though unsubstantiated, clung to Adams. The campaign saw an unprecedented level of personal attacks. Newspapers and pamphlets took sides and fired away at the two candidates. Jackson was branded a murderer, a duelist, an adulterer. Adams was portrayed as an effete intellectual, an elitist who squandered public funds on extravagant living. In the election of 1828, rallies, parades, and broadsides engaged a wider segment of the population than ever before. The outcome was a resounding victory for Andrew Jackson. His inauguration was famously chaotic and jubilant. Following the solemn swearing-in ceremony on the east portico of the Capitol, the crowd in attendance surged toward the White House. Muddy boots trampled Persian rugs. Fine china shattered as thousands clamored for a glimpse of their hero, a handshake, a taste of the refreshments. One later story in the Jackson White House captures well the character of his presidency. In 1835, a New York dairy farmer made a gift of a 1,400-pound wheel of cheese. Jackson chose the very heart of the executive mansion, the entrance hall, as the cheese's temporary home. There it aged for a full 2 years. In an 1837 celebration of George Washington's birthday, the president held an open house for the public, where he served the cheese. A throng converged on the 1,400-pound wheel. Within 2 hours, it was devoured. Its pungent aroma, however, remained for some time. On more serious matters, Old Hickory reshaped the American presidency through a series of bold policy decisions. Because Jackson saw a terrible concentration of power in the Second Bank of the United States, he dismantled it. In the Nullification Crisis of 1832, and in what portended the outbreak of the Civil War 3 decades later, Jackson opposed South Carolina's attempt to nullify the federal government's tariff, even to the point of calling for secession. Jackson underscored the supremacy of federal law and was willing to use force to preserve the Union. The mounting tensions between the federal and South Carolina governments diminished under a renegotiated version of the tariff. In his most infamous executive decision, Jackson signed into law the Indian Removal Act of 1830. Native American tribes, including the Cherokees, Choctaws, Chickasaws, Creeks, and Seminoles, were displaced from their lands east of the Mississippi to territories west of the river in Arkansas and Oklahoma. The forced migration was especially difficult for the Cherokees. Their arduous journey is known as the Trail of Tears. Approximately 4,000 Cherokees died en route to Oklahoma. Finally, the People's President used his power of veto against the People's Congress, more than all his predecessors combined. Jackson's unprecedented use of the veto cemented the executive branch's authority, leaving an indelible mark on the balance of power within the American government.